final real session of our annual meeting for 2023. I'm going to just give some closing thoughts and some thank yous, and appreciate all of your time. Many people throughout the day were at one session or another, depending on which topic made them caused them most interest. And I'd like to just reflect on some of the details that we heard throughout the day. Of course, we started with Lily Troya, our board chair, welcoming everyone and giving a bit of an overview of some of our activities and the evolution of SSURF's programs over the last couple of years. And then we were fortunate to hear from Brandon Bruff, who's the director of the National Nanotechnology Coordination Office. And he was describing all the connections between both user facilities and other research entities. That group and its goals are really a great opportunity for the network of user facilities to connect in with other related types of research entities and collectively leverage, in this case, all of the nanotechnology related research that's driving aspects of their activities. And we're proud to be able to be a resource to them as they've asked for us to help make some connections and to facilitate some of that that network building, that fabric strengthening amongst all these different nanotechnology research entities. We're really poised to do that in a very constructive way. And we'll look to share what we're finding within our engagement of that group back to our members and the user facilities directly to make sure that people are aware of who else should they be meeting with, and particularly what kind of discoveries and best practices are there to be shared and learned from. And then we moved on to the fantastic diversity, equity, and inclusion panel. After my remarks, I won't reiterate my remarks, but again, the common theme there is amongst those activities you heard me describing. Please, if any of those catch your attention and you would like to volunteer and help support our activities with your insight and your time, we are definitely all open for having your help. The diversity, equity, and inclusion programs at user facilities, the compelling start that we heard from Mamie, and one of the great phrases that she had at the beginning that she had heard that I really liked was, sometimes when all is said and done, more is said than is done. And let's make efforts to ensure that that's not the case when we bring people together for a thoughtful conversation with ideas on what can be next steps. So in that spirit, I think we are going to look to build on their conversation. This was Mamie and Natalie, also Natalie Holder, and then Linda Isaacson. And they brought up some great examples at their facilities as to how they are helping to strengthen everything from the awareness of, but to more so the structural integration of a mindset of more inclusion. And I think there's going to be some further conversations that we could arrange very conveniently online for examples of how their programs are working to be shared amongst the networks of user facilities. Linda's reference to the outreach program to the HBCUs really caught my attention, and the PEER, that was an acronym, PIER program that Natalie described, also really is something we need a bit more time to hear more about that and have more of a roundtable conversation where those of you in the audience can ask some direct questions and compare the answers to what you know is happening at your facilities. The update from Linda Horton regarding the fiscal year 23 budget and how that's been positively impacting post-COVID, the investments into delayed maintenance across so many facilities, the notion that there's been some kind of structural upgrade happening at nearly all of the facilities within basic energy sciences. That's been really, really good to hear. In her details that then leaned into more of the bioscience focus was really fascinating. That National Virtual Biotechnology Laboratory that came out of the COVID reaction is such a resource. And as you may have heard if you were listening to that panel, the lessons learned from how we were able to quickly address the needs that the COVID pandemic brought about. There's something to be really used as a foundation for what I would call the not if, but the when next kind of public health threat comes about. And we can draw on the examples of that whole teamwork between facilities in a remote sense to address whatever becomes that next public health threat. That leaned into the great keynote by Ian Wilson and the fascinating detail of his viral research, including such details as antibody interactions with repeater binding sites and crystal structures of antibodies to inform possible vaccine developments. I didn't know there were delta, gamma, beta, and also I'm forgetting one of the other ones, coronaviruses. But that level of detail and knowing that he and his team can leverage the technologies within user facilities, and particularly like the advanced photon source, we saw the list of the different facilities that they've been leaning into. That is a crucial example of where the user facilities are creating and allowing for discoveries that manifest in some cases within months, notwithstanding what can be years of taproot of research. But the reaction to the COVID pandemic and the way that our user facilities were resources for that is nothing less than astounding, probably actually more of a historical, in a positive sense, way that our technology was there to be leveraged to help address a pandemic. Then we were fortunate to hear from Kevin Fournier regarding a bit of the history of and the latest examples of what's happening at the National Ignition Facility relative to fusion energy research. And then Caroline Anderson describing what's happening on the commercialization side, notwithstanding what can always be a bit of a skepticism or just a long horizon that we're perceiving fusion energy may still take before it becomes something that we can truly access in a practical way. Their description, I think, gives us some more positive hope, positive insight into how quickly it can happen. I presume to live for a few more decades, and I presume then within that time, I will see fusion energy happen at a level of scale that might not be powering the entire North American continent, but it's going to be something that I've watched happen from that Kitty Hawk moment that Kevin was describing to a version of it being a part of our energy paradigm. So I hope all of you also presume to be living for several decades, and we're going to watch how fusion energy becomes part of our world. Then we were able to hear from Leland and appreciate his insight into the budget process, and more so his insights and the structure that you could see of the Energy Sciences Coalition, all building off of each other's strengths and insights to come together and weigh in with some very informed, very sophisticated, often very pointed statements to decision makers to ensure that investment in our scientific resources, assets, and in this case, particular to the Office of Science, is always top of mind. That is a crucial resource we're proud to be a member of and to help contribute towards those goals. But this is a great example of a person whose insights and true support for science is being leveraged, and I really appreciate what Leland is doing and how we've been able to join with the effort of the Energy Sciences Coalition. Then we got to hear from Diana, and you got the sense from my conversation with her, this is a recent awareness that we've had within SSURF to this newer program that, as she described, is just about a year old, with the Advanced Materials and Manufacturing Technologies Office within the Department of Energy. Their connection to user facilities and how they can help be a supportive tool and perhaps a financing tool, as well as a guiding entity to help the user facilities have a sense or have yet another voice saying, here is the type of technology that we are looking to manifest, in her case, towards a more energy efficient economy and other types of new energy paradigm technologies. If there is a bit of either financing or resources that her team can bring to bear to what your user facility is working on, there's more to learn there. And I would say, frankly, you could tell I was still learning more about what they have to offer, but we'll look to make further connections, perhaps have another webinar where we can learn more about what AMTO is offering and make the direct connections for user facility research scientists. And then lastly, we got to hear from Jennifer Greenamore, one of our board members, and her insight into how to interact in an advocacy sense on Capitol Hill has been invaluable. And also the structure that she described, I really appreciate how she has helped to map this out for us and help make connections so that when we're visiting Capitol Hill and bringing some of our board members and other member scientists, we can have this type of valuable and worthwhile interactions with decision makers that help to make sure that user facilities stay funded and stay top of mind. Thank you, Jennifer. I'll end then with thanking all of my board members, all the speakers who I just listed. I don't think I mentioned a couple of my other board members who were involved with a lot of planning. You saw the slide. I won't be bringing it up again now, but the slide of all of our board members, Michael Becker, who introduced Ian, and the rest of our board have been really helpful with their brainstorming. Let me build on that and say, any of you in the audience, if you're interested in helping us shape our next year in person, think late spring would be the timing, annual meeting. We'd love your insight into the kind of topics that we should have, the speakers that we should have, the agenda layout we should have. It's possible that in person, we would look to structure something that would be over 2 days so we could have that many more panels and keynotes and options for breakouts and things of that nature. So please raise your hand and connect with us if you would like to volunteer in that way. And then the different committees that we have, I'm mentioning the annual meeting committee, but there's also our communications committee, our government affairs committee, we have a user administrator committee, and your particular insight in how our organization can champion what you're doing and help be a resource for you. We will definitely make a lot of choices about our programming based on what we're hearing directly from members and our stakeholders. So please engage as you see fit. And with that, I'd say thank you for making us part of your day and engaging online with as many sessions as were relevant for you. I'm Dan Powers, Executive Director of the Society for Science at User Research Facility. It's my honor and I'm fulfilled to help champion what user facilities are providing to our country and to the world as solutions and ideas to advance humanity. Thanks for making us part of your day. And I look forward to seeing you again, both in person and online through the various programs that we'll be hosting through 23 and into 24. Thanks, everyone.